Is your bar looking a little ordinary? Is it lacking something awesome? Well, head out to your local liquor store and pick up something extraordinary. Grab a bottle of Old Humble Straight Whiskey or Old Humble Special Reserve. They're clean, smooth, easy drinking whiskeys that taste the way whiskey should taste. From humble beginnings to an extraordinary finish, Old Humble whiskeys are what your bar needs today. Walk tall, be awesome, and drink humble. Old Humble Straight Whiskey and Old Humble Special Reserve. Get yours today.
I am warm. You are warm. We hot?
You good?
Yep, we're hot. There we go. And now we're going to fade into the main camera where everybody can see us. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, welcome to the 60-second quarantine, Old Humble Quarantine Happy Hour, coming to you live-ish on YouTube. Over here on my right, screen left, is our distinguished international interstellar time traveling space science expert. How you like that?
If that were my actual title, wow, my life would be set.
Tanya Rogers. Everybody say hi. The crowd goes wild. That's awesome. And of course, at the beginning of every show, I like to thank my friends over at Cabin Fever Livestream on Twitch for hosting our channel. Remind everybody here on YouTube to hit subscribe and notification bell and like the video. This is actually a pre-recorded, so I'm not going to be able to respond to questions in chat, but I will follow up on questions in chat. So go ahead and hit those questions down there. And hi to everybody over in the Twitter sphere. Right now, I'm going to pour myself a cocktail, which is mostly water. This is it is our Black Magic liqueur. What do you got over there?
I've got a 100% water cocktail straight from my kitchen sink, so I'm living large over here.
Mostly water on your side too. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to you.
That is our Black Magic coffee liqueur. It is a low alcohol content. It is truly mostly water. And it's coffee too. So it's everything the growing boy needs. But I wasn't completely far off though. You are a distinguished interstellar time traveling science guru. You work with one of those agencies, and you focus on keeping people from catching a case of deadness in space.
Yeah, I mean, you make it sound really cool. You should write my resume for me.
Hey, if anybody needs a hype guy, I'm your dude. I will hype you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Just the crowd. I need drum set going on or aliens flashing around in the background. No, but it's kind of interesting. All the things that keep us alive here on Earth, not surprisingly, you need the same stuff if you're an astronaut going to space. And so I spend a lot of my time trying to work on that. So you can probably think of a couple of those things. You need some water.
Yeah, chicken
you
fried
want your
steak.
air to be clean. Yeah. You want some oxygen. It's good to breathe no matter where you are in the universe.
Sure. You need some music.
Some of those essentials. Yeah. And so I do a lot of that stuff. I work in the technology that helps us get that clean water, help us make sure the astronauts aren't choking on the carbon dioxide when they're up there, and helping us make sure we got some oxygen no matter where we go in the galaxy.
Now, this is actually a question that I've had for a very, very long time. Like thermodynamics, obviously they work in space, right? You're like heat rises, cold goes down, but there's not like gravity, so heat just kind of expands out, yeah?
Okay, so you're getting me excited with so many different words.
Ooh.
It's fascinating because the laws of physics, the fundamental laws of the universe, hold true on Earth, and they behave a little different when you get to space. And so liquids don't move the same way you expect them to move here on Earth, and gas molecules don't behave the same way. And so the way that we get hot air rising down here on Earth, if I were to boil a pot of water, you can just go over to your kitchen, you can just see that steam rising.
Right.
You start going to the space station, it doesn't work that way. And so thermodynamics don't get that hot air rising. You get thrown some words like buoyancy, and things get a little fun. And so it's actually not true to an extent. So things get different, yeah.
Because I've seen the experiments with flame, and it kind of glows out. It doesn't go up because we have gravity down here on Earth, and in microgravity it works differently. Well, I guess
Yeah,
technically it works the same. It just doesn't move whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Add
Yeah,
science words
I
here.
got you.
We can
I
add
got you.
science words in post. It's fine.
Yeah, no, those flame pictures are beautiful though, aren't they? Like the
Oh yeah.
shape of the flame, the color, like the people that work on that, I'm envious. They've
Oh
got a
yeah.
good life.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating and amazing. But me, of course, being who I am, the way distillation works is steam
Mm-hmm.
rises. Like
Mm-hmm.
specifically, like alcohol steam, the alcohol
Yeah.
vapors have to rise up above the
Mm-hmm.
actual everything else. How would you distill
Ooh, okay.
liquor in space? How do you separate the water from the alcohol vapors in
So
space? And
you
how does all that stuff work?
Yeah, so you would actually make liquor in space the same way you clean pee in space. And if I were talking to a
Hmm.
group of fifth graders, they would go, "Ew, you drink your pee in space." But
Okay,
no, it's
well,
true.
we can do that because I'm barely over fifth grade.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no,
so
well, no, it's true. And astronauts like to joke that, yesterday's coffee is today's coffee. We essentially just we have a distillery in space. That's what we do.
well, right,
And
okay,
yeah, and you think about, where does drinking water come from? If you launch it up from space, well, that's heavy. And
hmm
what if you're going to somewhere like Mars? You don't want to wait a couple years for your water to get to space. And so you really try to recover any wastewater you have up there, including your urine,
hmm
and we send it through a distillation process. And so it goes through a disinfection process first because urine naturally has some things in it that you don't want to drink inside of it,
right.
right?
It is, after all, wastewater.
It is wastewater, yeah. And then you remove some molecules because you got a lot of nitrogen-rich species and some other volatile compounds that you probably don't want in your body
You
anyways.
said the fancy word for poop.
Yeah. Well, if you say poop, then people are like, "Oh no, we're drinking our poop." Not now. Now I'm thinking about drinking poop, and it's going in a weird place.
Mm,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a
So
thick,
we,
thick coffee there, baby.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so we distill it, and we have kind of an artificial gravity process. You can think about it that way.
Hmm.
And so your traditional distillation process, you got some sort of column, and you've got all your gases rising, right?
Yeah.
Well, in this space, you're in distiller. You actually have this giant cylindrical drum,
Hmm.
and it spins around really, 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 really fast.
Okay. So you
And
use centrifuges to separate the compounds
yeah,
and
yeah.
the vapors, I guess. In the same, I guess, the same kind of way that they purify uranium down here. Oh, well, you shouldn't talk about that.
Similar.
Not out loud, at least, on the internet,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. That, that,
now the
that goes
FBI is
down.
going to be watching.
Yeah, I know. I've already got somebody in a black van pulling up outside of my house.
Like, Flowers by
Yeah.
Iris. Oh, that's awesome. Someone's
Yeah, and
somebody's getting somebobody's getting cable installed from
the third
the
plumbing service to show up in like the past 2 minutes.
the cable installation agency is over here.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks guys. Uh, but I guess you have to invent, in your when you're in microgravity, you have to invent gravity because you can't just expect these things to
Yeah.
do it because it goes out and you need things to go in a certain order, so you can take this
Yeah,
off and
yeah.
take that out.
Hmm.
Huh. So
Ooh, actually, can I show you something cool? Can I run to
yes,
something? I'll be right back. I'm going to show you a cool liquid microgravity
cool.
thing. I'll be right back.
Awesome. A cool liquid microgravity. So we are about to see a cool liquid microgravity thing, which I believe is the scientific term for whatever this gizmo is that she's going to get. A cool
Okay.
liquid microgravity thing.
Okay, so I'm going to show this to you, and I'm not going to tell you what it is until I tell you why it's really cool.
Okay.
So when we talk about how do you move liquids and gases in space,
Mm-hmm.
if you're here on Earth, we think of all the conventional things, right? We think of distillation columns, we think of pumps,
Mm-hmm.
we think of centrifugal devices. But what happens if you don't want to use any of that stuff, right? If you want to move liquid around without a pump, well, you
Well,
would tell me
if you don't want
gravity.
to move stuff around without a pump, you got to fly on Air India.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's what they do to save money.
Yeah, so we don't got any gravity up there. And if you want to separate liquids and gases without heating anything or without having a centrifuge, you're kind of like limiting your options.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this really, really, really smart astronaut and really, really smart scientist that I'm just in awe of. And they came up with a way to move liquids and gases in space without any of those things
Mm-hmm.
and complete separation process. And this is where we need like the hype, the drum roll coming
Okay.
in.
The
So
drum roll. We'll
I
add that in post.
present to you, this is the first ever space cup. And let me
Space
tell
cup.
you why it's so cool.
And it's a space cup like a drinking cup.
Well, it's a drinking cup, so it's cool
Okay.
because you can things from it, but it's also a really cool, fluid mechanics sciencey thing because it can separate liquids and gases.
Cool.
And the way it works, let's see. I'm gonna try to pour some water and not spill it because I have the coordination skills of a 5-year-old. Okay. So you see the shape the liquid is taking inside of this cup? If I were in space, the shape would be totally different. You would actually get this kind of meniscus curvature going down. It's only flat because of gravity.
Because it would crawl up the walls with the surface tension.
Yeah, and it does that because of surface tension, which is the coolest thing in the world. But so when you look at the front of the cup, you see the back here is actually really wide, gets really narrow. And so if I microgravity, the liquid actually starts to creep up and comes to the lip of the cup and you can drink from it. And if there's any trapped gases inside of this liquid right here, they're gonna want to rise to this free surface. So right where you see the liquid and the air meet, we call that the free surface, and the gas bubbles kind of just start popping out. And they've demonstrated this in space, and it's super cool. And so you can actually move liquids and separate gases and liquids this way by using this little device called the space cup. It's pretty fascinating.
That is wicked cool. That is so cool. That really is cool. And me being a guy, I'm thinking a space cup is what the guys wear in their astronaut uniforms.
Yeah.
Just to make sure the meteorites don't hit them in the meteorites.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's for.
The meteorites don't hit them in their asteroids.
Yeah.
It cracked me up.
Bathrooms and going to the bathroom in space is a pretty interesting challenge as well. You don't want to sit there in a diaper the whole time, and so the space toilet is a thing.
Yeah.
And it's years and years of engineering to make a space toilet. I mean, you got this giant hose, and you connect it to your area.
Damn right, I got a giant. Wait, what?
Okay. No. Man, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, you turn on some valves and it's like you're going to the bathroom inside of a giant machine, which in a way, all toilets are.
Yeah.
But you're actually seeing it. So lots of cool science up there.
The basic mechanics of stuff going on up there, where they've got to where it's like stuff they just didn't even think about, like when they were doing the first extra or spacewalk stuff, when they thought that it was like rock climbing, but it wasn't like rock climbing. It was more like scuba diving. And they hadn't thought about that until they actually went out there and did it. The amount of things that they had to overcome, the amount of imagination that they needed to even think about what it would be like in this completely foreign space, literally, is just absolutely fascinating. It's easy to think of it as a matter of, what did it cost India to launch a probe to the moon with something like $150 million, which was cheaper than the movie Gravity.
Yeah.
But it's not just a matter of putting together $175 million, slapping something on a rocket and launching into space. There's a whole lot of stuff that's involved. If you shoot something at where it is, it's not going to hit it because that thing's moving. I mean, you're moving to begin with, but that thing's moving. And that's a whole lot of mechanics that people don't even think about when they think of space.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that fascinates me is if you are like, we talk about aliens coming to visit Earth, right?
This subject always comes up. I'm ready for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always so skeptical when they say, yeah, there was this big giant spaceship and it had lights on it and stuff. I'm like, why the hell would somebody send a spaceship to Earth with lights on it? Like they're launching a rocket into space and sending a probe trillions and trillions and trillions of miles over hundreds of thousands of light years or whatever. It gets here and they're like, okay, I'm going to turn on the lights to find out where they got half the planet they can land on. It's already lit up. Like they're going to have headlights on this car. You're not going to launch headlights across the galaxy. That's dumb.
They might as well just show up outside of our houses in those plumber vans. It's the same amount of notice.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean though. It's a lot of people don't realize how much work actually goes into sending something to space, and you never get it the first time. I mean, space history, you can watch any space history documentary and you'll learn these fascinating stories. But even to this day, something as small as a simple piece of tape or a piece of Velcro, it goes through like 2 years of certification processes and testing just to make sure it's going to do what we say it's going to do and nobody's going to get hurt. And that's part of the reason why space exploration is so expensive, because we truly care about the safety of our astronauts living up to that high standards.
Yeah. And, we've got some of the smartest people doing this stuff right now. both in the private and public sectors. The public
Absolutely.
sector, they assemble the best and brightest to do it. And granted, there's the logistic stuff that has to go on with the public sector things, like you have to do something in
Mhm.
Alabama and Washington and Nevada and
Mhm.
wherever else they have all the stuff. But some of the smartest people who, rich as a pharaoh, like Elon Musk, and it's not just a matter of putting $1 billion worth of a rocket together. That dude failed like I think it was his fifth try before he actually got something
Yeah.
to launch and land.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this stuff's hard, and
Yeah.
when I think of a probe going across the galaxy with headlights on it, I think of like what food did they not pack so that they could have headlights,
Hmm.
or how much water did they not pack so that they could have a pair of headlights on their stupid little probe.
And
Uh,
it's crazy. Every single pound gets calculated. And are we going to launch this or not? Even just a bag of water. It's not as simple as tossing in a little bag of water. It's like, is this worth the mass? And what trade offs are you gonna give up?
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially when you're talking about the difference between actually making it into orbit and not, because you had
Mhm.
uh, an extra big breakfast or something ridiculous like that. Like, oh yeah, he's been eating way too much food the last 2 or 3 days. He's packed on 3 or 4 pounds. We're gonna have to drop some oxygen. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the challenges too. We're trying to go to Mars, right? And we're trying to go to these places beyond low Earth orbit. And it gets harder because you really got to start cutting back because the more fuel you need, well, that makes it harder for you to get there. And you don't want to get rid of the essential things because you want to make sure you have enough food that lasts while you're up there and you have enough oxygen. And
Hmm.
it's just a giant trade off of trying to figure out, how to make that calculation. And some really smart people work on that and they have a tough job.
Oh yeah, yeah. It fascinates the hell out of me too. The idea of doing a staging, the staging process in space where they send up the supplies first, and then you go up to meet the supplies, and then go with the supplies, or
Yeah.
send the supplies ahead, so that you have a full pantry waiting for you on the planet. How are they coming? What is the state of the industry or state of the science with regards to that? Because I see a lot of stuff about like micro robots that go ahead, little builder robots.
Hmm.
Is that an actual thing that can be done, or is it like this is the thing we think can be done in the next 15 years? We're working on
It depends who you ask to, you talk to. Some people be like, "We figured this out 20 years ago," and some people were like, "We're 50 years away. We're all doomed." But I mean, in the small amount of time I've been in this industry for about 5 or 6 years now, and I've already seen how far we've come.
it. Hmm.
And there's a huge push. So what you're talking about is something called the government loves acronyms. So I'm going to try not to toss out every acronym in the world right here, but this might be my only one. So there's something called ISRU, in situ resource use. Wow, well,
Hmm.
I can't even say it. In situ resource utilization, and it's all
Hmm.
about rather than launching things from Earth, what supplies can we use that exist at other planets, or how can we harvest those supplies?
Right.
And actually, one of my favorite experiments, I can't remember if it recently launched or it's launching soon, is a little robot that's going to Mars and it's going to basically harvest the atmosphere of Mars. So
Hmm.
here on Earth, our air is like mostly oxygen and nitrogen, right? And when you're on Mars, I think the atmosphere is like 95% carbon dioxide.
Hmm.
And so that's not good for us humans. We're not just going to walk around with no life support and try to breathe the carbon dioxide. At least I'm not. I don't know about you.
Well, I might do it on a dare.
Yeah, maybe a double dog dare with some whiskey for me. But no, but there's this robot, and it's basically it has this little technology on it, and I won't dive into the cool technology details, but it turns that CO2, that carbon
Hmm.
dioxide, into oxygen.
Hmm.
And so rather than having to launch up like these tanks of oxygen, this little robot just going to go around and suck out the carbon dioxide in the air and just turn it into oxygen. And I think that's really cool. And that's not something we had, 10, 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah, and that's a fascinating thing all by itself to have a little factory go up there to produce the stuff we need out of the air.
Yeah.
I've also seen plans to launch a probe up there that made its own rocket fuel,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it drops on the planet and it'll separate the carbon and the oxygen and produce the methane or whatever it needs to do
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get the rocket fuel to send itself back home.
Yeah, those are really, really cool experiments as well. It's kind of similar to a little oxygen robot because we're using liquid fuel these days, and part of that is liquid oxygen. And
Hmm.
so how do you get that? But the bigger challenge is you need that oxygen to be as clean as possible. So it's not even just about finding oxygen or making oxygen. It's, it kind of goes back to our story earlier about you want to clean everything out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do the same with the oxygen. You want to clean it and you want to make sure it has kind of the right moisture conditions. And that's where things get really hard. It's similar to when you're distilling something to 99% purity versus 99.9. People don't realize like how much work that extra 1% is.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's a reason why we usually we don't even get to 99, because that's
it's just the
like
efficiency trade-off just goes downhill, right? And then at some point you're like, well,
the difference between 92% alcohol and 99% alcohol, most human beings aren't going to notice it. And luckily, we sell most of our alcohol to human beings. So
yeah. Well, you could be selling to aliens here in the near future if we're living up on Mars with our oxygen robots, so you never know.
Well, we're still doing market research, but as far as we know, the alien market is really, really small. As far as we know.
I remember, I think there's a company sending beer up to space or growing the yeast for beer in space. I don't remember the details. But...
Yeah, I think there was a Scotch that sent a barrel up to age in space. It might have been a bourbon company, but they sent a barrel up to age in space. And I haven't tasted any of the space-aged whiskey. I would think that with the same principles of thermodynamics that are happening with the alcohol going into the wood and not going into the wood. Okay, so here's what happens when whiskey ages.
Okay.
There's temperature variances that happen between summer and winter and spring and fall, and the alcohol expands and goes into the barrel, and it contracts and comes back out of the barrel. When it gets cold, the barrel contracts and the alcohol comes out. When it gets warm, it goes into it. So in Kentucky, for example, you'll have 6 good months of warm weather and 6 good months of cool weather, where it expands and then it contracts, and expands and contracts. Texas, it's more like 19 months of warm weather and 2 months of cool weather.
10 minutes of cold weather.
but it'll expand in a given year. You'll get a longer aging period than you will in Kentucky, and that's also why we don't typically age our whiskey in a climate-controlled environment, because we want that fluctuation of temperature and aging going in and out of the wood. So when you're in space, it's either climate-controlled or it's really, 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 really cold. Right? Because it's space. So unless they can, I mean, even in the sunny side, it's pretty cold, right?
Yeah, we keep the inside of the space station to be comfortable for the astronauts, and we keep proper oxygen and nitrogen ratio and the humidity levels, but
but even if the barrel was outside in space, it would be really, really cold.
Oh yeah,
even when it gets hot, it wouldn't be very hot.
Oh yeah. A barrel outside in space, the vacuum of space, that's not going to survive, or the temperature. Yeah,
it would freeze it like that, and no aging would happen when it's frozen. Yeah. So I don't know how well that stuff ages when it's in actual zero-G climate-controlled environment. I would be fascinated to find out. That would be one of the other challenges, I think, of making whiskey in space, is actually aging the stuff, because I don't know. I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, I don't,
I'll leave that to the nerds. Let y'all figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there are some people who brew beer. One of my favorite astronauts, when he talks about brewing beer, he talks about the microbes he uses. People will talk about their grains or, the temperatures, and he's like, I don't care about any of that. Let me tell you about these cool bacteria.
Yeah, the yeast nerds.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's similar for folks in the whiskey world, but that's for something I can imagine being different, because microbes behave differently when you're in space, and we don't fully understand it yet. And so just that effect of microgravity makes those little bacteria not do what they would be on Earth. And so maybe there's something going on there in the whiskey, but...
Yeah, well, I know that there are proprietary strains. All over the industry, they have proprietary strains. We're developing our own proprietary strain for when we are fully operational and I have a proper functioning refrigerator that I can keep my own proprietary strains at. And over time, those strains become very unique and very, almost like a starter dough for sourdough bread. They have sour mash whiskeys that they maintain their same mash over decades and centuries in some cases. It becomes quite the process to maintain this, because that gives it a specific flavor. I would think space yeast would be a little bit different than earth yeast. for the same reason, because it would grow in different ways and have different environmental stressors that help it to evolve, blah, 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 do things that yeast does. Make sense?
You basically just wrote a science book right there. Evolve, blah, 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 done. Space yeast. Have you ever seen a picture of a microbe under a microscope? It's really fascinating. Like their actual cellular membrane wall and these little like legs that grow out the perimeter.
Yeah. I went to high school.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not that old. They had microscopes when I was a kid.
I know you went to high school, but I don't know like what specifically you've seen pictures of.
They had that stuff. Even in Texas, they had that stuff in books. They were like, God created these. And, there were little pictures of, like little microbes with hats and Bibles. It happens.
Little killing armadillos, which I need to hear that story. I need to hear what happened.
Okay, so yesterday, my neighbor comes and knocks on my door. All right, let me preface this. So I'm tired. I have a headache. I've been up all day. I've been up most of the night. And the reason why is because I was up really late last night hunting an armadillo. Why was I hunting an armadillo, you might ask? Well, my neighbor comes and knocks on my door, and he says, we've got something going on out here. Come check it out. So we go outside, and we look, and my whole yard is just torn up. There's like grass that's been ripped out by the roots, bare patches in his yard, and not the next house, but the next house has it. The next house has it. Like 5 of the 6 houses in our little cul-de-sac over here got attacked by these varmints.
Taking names, wow.
And we found a pile of scat, and we played the game that every Cub Scout, Boy Scout, and juvenile grown-up plays. What pooped? Whose scat is that? So I was able to identify. I'm pretty sure this was armadillo poop.
Okay, well, hold on. How do you identify armadillo poop? Is it the shape? Do you smell it? Like, what goes into this poop identifying game?
It tastes a little bit like blackberries. Okay. No, I'm kidding. Yes, it's the shape, the shape and size. I mean, animals poop. That's how we know Bigfoot doesn't exist, because you've never, ever, 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 ever found Bigfoot poop. It doesn't exist.
I can get behind that logic.
And okay. Unless Bigfoot's a Vulcan, Bigfoot doesn't exist. So there you go. This is science. This is how things work. I mean, you can even find whale poop. So we know whales exist because they have poop. It's there. It's in the ocean, and that's why the ocean doesn't drain into the sand. See, because of the whale poop, it seals the sand. That's a fact that I just made up.
Yeah, I was like, I've never. What? This makes 0 sense.
It's just like when they seal a pond with goose poop. It works. That's a thing.
Probably. Okay, so you're
anyway,
identifying
sidetracking.
Not by eating it.
So yeah. So we identify the poop. I'm fairly certain it's armadillo poop. It doesn't look like possum poop. It doesn't look like raccoon poop. We're fairly certain this is armadillo poop. And what they did to the yard kind of tracks what armadillos do. They kind of just paw at the ground to get to grubs and worms and bugs that are right there underneath the turf. So last night, I mean, I'm doing a little live stream thing last night until about 2 o'clock, and then between 1:30 2 o'clock, it's time to go hunting. So I grabbed my high-powered flashlight, grabbed my 22, I grabbed my mug of water. It was water. I was walking around with water, and head out, and I walk around the neighborhood, my street here, shining a light underneath the bushes to see if anything was out. And I go down the street, I turn the corner, I go down the street, walk all the way down to Main Drag, where we have a bunch of trees out towards the, it's about a quarter mile or so down the road where the golf course is. And I didn't see any armadillos, didn't see anything out. I was the only idiot out at 3 o'clock in the morning, walking around with a flashlight in one hand, mug in the other hand, and a 22 pistol in my pocket.
Yeah. No. This is the most Texas story. If I were an armadillo, this is exactly how it would get you away from your house, just so I can go poop at your house.
Yeah, and then I come home and like the door's been kicked in, and all the armadillos are in the kitchen, eating all my food, smoking all my cigars, and drinking all my whiskey. Damn varmints! But we'll put out a live trap tonight and see if we can catch him. If he's smart, he's not coming back. But
Yeah.
and
Well,
then
I hope you guys catch him. Good luck.
well, and then once we catch him, of course, we're going to go and drop him off at a neighbor's house, and then on the other street.
The guy with the political flag across the street that you don't like, just start dropping all the armadillos off at his house.
Yeah, let him have them. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did last night. That's why I'm drinking mostly water this afternoon, because I'm tired and I need a little bit of coffee to keep me awake.
Yeah.
So there you go. So more about aliens.
More about aliens.
More about aliens.
Yeah.
So if we travel between planets, like that's already going to take like 6 months for human beings to go in between planets. How on earth would interstellar travel work? I mean, we're talking like generation ships, right?
Yeah, that's the dream right there. Our technology currently.
Is it a level of imagination that we just haven't figured out how to do it? Like, how would it even look? Because it's clearly not just really, really, really fast spaceships.
Right.
There's got to be some way to shrink that distance, because otherwise you're talking several generations on a spaceship that when they land, they wouldn't even look like us anymore.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just a technology we don't know how to imagine yet, because it comes from physics or materials that we've yet to discover, honestly. I mean, our limit of imagination in terms of things that are feasible, in the next 10 years are based on what we currently know or what we're currently discovering. And I just believe there has to be something else out there, some magic material or some magic form of matter that we don't yet know, that's gonna hold the keys, the answer to that question.
Yeah, and if you looked at what we have now, really, if you looked at it 20 years ago of stuff we're using and manipulating and working with now, what we have now really does kind of seem science fiction-y. Because at the turn of the century, God, the turn of the century, that sounds. When I was a kid, when we talked about turn of the century, we were talking about Ford was inventing the Model T. The Wright brothers were just beginning to fly.
I love the Wright brothers. They're fast. Anyhow, yeah. the Wright, but seriously, the Wright brothers did so much cool stuff for just the advancement of technology and their process. I'm not going to fail. And they practically invented a wind tunnel, right? I don't have a way to test it. Let me create something to solve the problem that I've created for myself. And they did it, and it's genius.
They invented a problem, then they invented a solution for the problem.
Yeah.
And the solution worked. It wasn't just a make-believe solution for a make-believe problem. It actually worked to solve the real problem. But then they had to invent a whole industry, because in order to sell airplanes, they had to invent pilots. In order to invent pilots, they had to invent pilot school.
I mean, it's true ingenuity. No,
but building all of that from scratch is just a fascinating history of building an industry. And it was, and it's amazing what they did with help of government contracts and other private sector stuff. But to go from zero to spaceflight in 50 years was pretty awesome.
It's amazing. And even where we are today versus 20 years ago, we are reusing rocket parts, right? It's not just one and done. And we are landing them and we are reusing them. And our fuel, we went from a solid fuel system to liquid fuel system. We're learning how to conserve and use fuel better. And from like a surface level, those incremental changes may look like we're not advancing much. When you step back and look at that bigger picture, in just the past 10 years alone, it's pretty phenomenal.
How much of a difference does that make between solid fuel and liquid fuel?
It makes a huge difference. It like the way it burns, the combustion properties, the amount of fuel you need in terms of packing it inside and launching it, it makes a drastic difference.
So the liquid is more efficient, pound for pound?
I don't know that number trade off the top of my head, but I do know it's more efficient. But I mean,
if you had a choice, you'd choose liquid over solid.
Yeah, you would choose liquid. But, and I mean, who knows? I'm just excited to see if we've come this far in the past 20 years, where are we going to be in 20 years from now? Like, what is the futuristic technology that we've yet to discover, or and it's going to become like the everyday norm that we use when it comes to space?
So, is there a magic key, a a super app, a super tool that y'all are looking to find that solves, like, what's the problem you're looking to solve, that you're just pounding? Is it just composite materials that are super light and super strong? Is it uh, uh, more efficient fuels? Is it getting to places quicker? I mean, is that always the super the killer app for space travel, is just trying to get someplace quicker?
I think it's always, where can we explore further? Can we
Hmm.
go further and further into space than we currently are limited to?
Hmm.
Going back to the moon is a big emphasis in the space industry these days, and going to Mars. And there's a couple factors that are kind of limiting. One of it's the fuel, right? And so you really want to try to get the most amount of energy pure for the smallest amount of mass as possible, and trying to find that magical chemical reaction. That's always a big interest of people.
Hmm.
Materials as well. So the most lightweight but strongest materials, again, that kind of plays into this whole mass equation.
Yeah.
Also, radiation is another thing people don't think about. There's radiation out in space, and human bodies are not built for radiation. And how do
No,
you protect yourself against that? And
we're
how do
not
you do
built
that
for
without?
anything stressful or
Yeah,
harmful.
we were not built to leave not gravity environments,
Yeah,
and so it's cool that we are learning how to do that, but
we're
that definitely
barely
comes with
even
its cost.
we're barely even built to spend time in water. I mean, gee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm barely built to survive inside of this quarantine right now, so it's all a matter of perspective.
I
But
mean, these days at least, when they're like, yeah, just go run 3 miles. We're like, what?
yeah,
We're not even built for that
um,
anymore.
yeah, no, yeah, the radiation thing is interesting because, I mean, typically you would just shield yourself with a thick, large amount of material,
Hmm.
right? I mean, that's the basic way of looking at it, and you don't want to launch that thick, large amount of material into space. And so, how do you shield yourself from all that radiation? That's a huge challenge too.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of a lot of things. Really just trying to get there as efficiently as possible, and trying to protect our bodies as efficiently as possible,
Hmm.
and also trying to keep the astronauts alive with some of those essentials we talked about earlier as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. It seems like once we get there, look, we have the ingenuity and material science and
Hmm.
engineering to figure out how to make pretty much any place hospitable, or at least build out a hospitable place for us to be on in just about any place. It seems
Hmm.
like the biggest challenge is still getting
Getting
there,
there.
getting there
Yeah.
quickly enough so that everybody doesn't die on the way, getting there quickly enough so that we don't have to have giant states worth of food in
Hmm.
in the pantry, so to speak. Uh,
Hmm.
and that seems to be the biggest challenge for anything going on with regard to space travel, because even the moon is a week away or 3 days away, however long it is to get to the moon. It seems like
That's pretty quick.
a
Yeah.
really long distance. Uh, but Mars is what, 4 or 5 months away, and if we were going to go to Europa, that's like, a couple of years. If we were going to actually get out of the solar system, it would be a lifetime. I mean, it just seems that getting somewhere is the challenge, the biggest challenge. Once we get there, we could drop a hab unit and just do a couple of clicks and connect up the power plants and do all the stuff. And if we don't like it, we can delete it and just readjust things according to the hex grid.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, yeah, getting there is a challenge, but
because life is just a video game.
yeah, we're all in a simulation. Oh man, I don't drag me down that rabbit hole right now. um, yeah, so once you get there, you gotta either have things set up and ready to go, like you need to have an operating chemical plant or something, or you gotta set it up yourself, and that's the second challenge, right? And
Hmm.
Elon Musk, people have mixed feelings about him. I have mixed feelings about him. He likes to say that the first people that go to Mars aren't coming back. They are like the sacrifices to science,
Probably
because
so. Yeah.
yeah, even if you're gonna get there, well, how are they gonna survive there if we don't already have kind of this infrastructure or logistical system set up? And maybe he's right.
It would be less ominous if he wasn't planning on naming his first Spaceship One the Roanoke Colony. But,
Yeah,
whatever, Elon, you do you.
yeah, yeah. Classic Elon. I mean, I don't know what to think about Elon. I think he pushes the boundaries when it comes to space exploration, and as a society, we need that, right?
Oh, yeah,
You
absolutely.
need somebody that's going to kind of push through those barriers, and you need somebody that's intentionally going to fail a lot.
Hmm.
And you need somebody that has those crazy ideas. You need those like innovative disruptors, because that's how things change. That's
Yeah.
how you make progress. And history, when you look at any moment in history, you'll see that.
I like the idea of having a crazy rich uncle who just takes piles of cash and throws them into a rocket engine. That's cool. I mean, that's Elon.
And or throws it into his car engine that he launches into space just because he feels like it.
That was definitely somebody who pissed him off.
Yeah.
that spacesuit was filled with the body of somebody.
So people like to joke. I have no knowledge of this. I'm not like confirming it in any way. People like to joke.
She is totally confirming this in every way.
No. that he just like tossed all his enemies in that trunk, and that's like the perfect. You know how your friends or the internet play the like "Where would you bury somebody" game? That's like the perfect answer to that.
I'd bury him in the capsule of my rocket that I'm launching to Mars.
Yeah.
That's what I'd do. Hell yeah.
No, nobody's gonna go up there and find it.
And when it finally does crash back on Earth, the statute of limitations is going to be long gone.
Yeah, I mean, humans will be dead by then. It's fine. That was dark. I didn't.
So that's Tanya planning to destroy the entire human race before Elon's probe lands back on Earth. Thanks.
Okay, this is going down the path.
Our international space science, intergalactic space science expert has just threatened the existence of the human species.
No. Okay. Let me be clear.
Give her gifts, people, is what I'm saying. Give her gifts. Appease her.
No. I have a lot of hope in humanity, and
appease her wrath.
I'm rooting for us. I'm rooting for us as a species here on Earth, and I'm rooting for us as a species to go beyond Earth and have another planet. So let me throw that out there.
I like our odds. I think, as far as a species goes, I think we do pretty good for ourselves.
We do.
I haven't seen very many dolphins landing on the moon. Suck it, dolphins.
Dolphins.
I think you're so smart.
Here come the dolphins and the plumber vans now. I'm just waiting for somebody with a van outside of my house every time we like point the finger at somebody.
I'm gonna get blown up on Twitter by the dolphins.
Yeah.
Whatever. You don't even have thumbs. Y'all don't know how to tweet.
Yeah.
Y'all don't drink nearly enough whiskey for me to care about your opinions, you dumb dolphins.
Stupid dolphins.
Yeah, I know, right? Of course, we're going to go to Europa or someplace, and they're going to be all under the ice sheet, just down there with their supercomputers planning on how to destroy Earth.
You know who you don't want to piss off, though? The shrimp. The mantis shrimp? Do you know anything about mantis shrimp? Now, I know you...
The hunters of the sea. They're
crazy.
They're little boxers. Yeah.
They have like these little pinchers that can shoot faster than a pistol. Like if you put your finger in one of those things, your finger's coming off. You do not want. They're like little weapons of the sea. But also, we go back to the microscope. Like, have you seen this thing under a microscope? Google electron image pictures of shrimp eyes. Now that's really cool. So shrimp eyes, we have like these photoreceptor cells in our eyes. I think we have somewhere from like 2 to 4, and shrimp eyes have like 5 times as many.
Is that why they taste so delicious?
Are you eating shrimp eyes?
Well, no, just the shrimp in general. Because they have so many eyes, or is that why they're delicious? Or is there other things that make shrimp delicious?
I think there are other things, probably like the human seasonings.
Didn't see that coming with your 4 photoreceptors, did you?
No, I don't think there's a correlation between like photoreceptor and the shrimp taste. I don't think that's a thing. Anyhow, all this to say, go look at a Google image of a microscopic picture of a shrimp eye because it's pretty fascinating.
Google microscopic images. Is there anything that Google doesn't do? Love my children. Got you on that one, Google. Suck it.
Google's got it figured out.
You can't hug my children for me, Google. But when you figure that one out, guys, seriously, let me know.
Yeah. Well, if Google's figuring that one out, you should probably be pretty afraid. If Google's showing up to interact with your children, that's
full on interactive AI from Google. It'd be awesome. that'd be super awesome. So I keep coming back to this notion of like the traveling in space thing, because I always have these conversations when people are, there's an unidentified flying object and they're like, that's obviously aliens. I'm like, no, it's not obviously aliens. Like, there's seriously trillions and trillions, an infinite number of more plausible explanations than aliens. Partly because things are so far away in space. I don't think we as a people understand how far away everything, like literally everything, is from us in space. Like even the sun is really, 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 really far. It's just really, really big.
Yeah.
And we get a little spoiled, especially with our video games, because we just want to go there, and we click, and we're there. And as far as the killer apps to solve those problems, we're talking about better materials and better engines and all that sort of stuff. Is it my failure of imagination to think that we could never figure that out to be able to get from between stars within a lifetime? Is it my failure of imagination? Am I
I
the
don't
one
think so.
thinking too small?
No. I think it really just comes back to we can't imagine things that we don't know how to explain yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps coming back to those things not existing at the moment. And we also, we sometimes forget how big the universe truly is. Like we are just a speck in our galaxy. And think of like thousands and thousands and thousands of other galaxies that are out there, right? And going from one speck to this infinite vast sea of stars and planets and all these other things that exist, it's our minds can't grasp that because we can't even like it's hard for us to truly even grasp how big the universe is. It's just a challenging thing for our human minds to think about.
What if we got really, 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 really small, even smaller? Like if we could shrink ourselves down to the size of like a photon, because
Oh, that'd be
photons
cool.
have no mass. They can
If we
travel at the speed of light.
if we can use some giant like shrink ray gun, I'm more
Yeah.
interested in that right now. A giant shrink ray gun that can shrink us down.
Would it be conceivably possible to shrink us down to a photon and shoot at the speed of light to another place? Then we could get to Alpha Centauri in like 4 years, right? And
I
then
mean, even if
undo the shrink ray, and then now we're not a photon anymore. We're the full. We could send the whole armada. Could we do that?
Yeah, I mean, even if we're as small as a speck of dust, and photons are much smaller than dust, but it's easier to imagine. We still got to have the technology to get us there, right? And you're gonna need a lot of fuel. If we think about like the conventional things of how we know how to space travel right now,
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna have some sort of fuel supply that's gonna take us all the way from Earth to beyond the Milky Way galaxy. And so there's got to be some or other like think about Star Trek where you're like jumping through black holes or some sort of thing that we don't know yet. That's going to be the key too. It's not just about how much we weigh, but it's really that technology that'll take us from point A to far away into the universe.
Some kind of way to actually reduce the distance.
Yeah,
Like
some way to reduce the distance or some way to not
Tesseract.
depend. Yeah, some way to not depend on chemical reactions to get us there because those deplete themselves, right? You don't have an infinite number of
Yeah.
chemicals. Those
So
deplete
what's the
themselves.
alternative to a chemical reaction? What other ways are there to create
Yeah,
forward motion without a chemical reaction blowing energy out the other direction?
so there are people looking at kind of electromagnetism, which
Oh,
I guess
okay.
in a way you can argue there's electrons and there's some chemistry happening.
Mm-hmm.
There are people thinking about ionizing air,
Like
so like
solar
ionize
sails. That's one I've
solar
heard.
cells. Yeah, so that's cool. There's a
And
solar
that's not a
cell.
chemical reaction. The Planetary Society, Bill Nye's
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
Another
And so
mad
there.
scientist hell bent on
Oh man,
saving the
this
world.
stuff is amazing. Did you watch him? I think he was on PBS as a kid growing up.
Yeah,
The Bill
I watched Bill
Nye.
Nye the Science Guy when I was a kid. Uh,
Yeah, good
uh,
show.
I watched Bill Nye Saves the World on Netflix now. Uh,
Hmm.
he and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're good buddies. I'm sure they go
Hmm.
golfing together and talk all about how the physics of golf.
Probably go armadillo hunting together.
Great way to make golf even more dreadful. Oh, this is how you do
I,
physics of golf. Shut up, Neil.
I can't golf. I can't. I bet Bill Nye is that guy. You know how you go to the movies and there's always the like the book is better person. I
Oh
bet
yeah.
he's the well physics should tell me to hit the ball this way person.
Yeah. It's really simple science. What you do is you hit the ball in just such a way so that it goes up here and lands. Can you do it? No.
But I
Like
can
okay.
calculate it.
But thanks for telling me. Great
Yeah,
instructor there, Phil. Appreciate it.
classic Bill.
And yeah, I'm terrible at golf as well, but I enjoy riding around in the golf cart and drinking whiskey and smoking cigars. So
Yeah,
everybody can find their point of pleasure at the golf course, I suppose, if they really try hard enough. Uh,
absolutely.
uh, uh, man, so, I wanted to bring up time travel, but we only have like 10 minutes. Well, you know what? That's plenty of time to talk about time travel because time travel means you have an infinite amount of time because, But just the easy softball time travel questions. How many times did Doc kill Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2? Like, if you really think about it, how many times did he kill Marty McFly and be like, whoops, that didn't work, and zip back 5 minutes and go, okay, I need to have the car here to catch him when he jumps off the building.
Just hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty style.
Was that a Rick and Morty thing too?
I think
need to
watch
Rick and Morty.
Done a lot of stuff.
So many people tell me to watch that. I need to watch that.
Oh, you should watch it. You would like it.
Is it one of those cartoons like SpongeBob where I have to get really high before I watch it?
I can't comment on that. I think Rick and Morty, it's nice because they talk about cool, fun, sciencey stuff without trying to sound really smart, and so it's really relatable. I appreciate that part. And
that's my kind of science. Oh my god!
Yeah, they got a crazy drunk guy that just invents all this really cool shit that things that we can't even dream of yet, and this cartoon is over here dreaming of it. It's kind of like you ever seen the physics episodes of Futurama that have actually won like proper awards. It's similar to that in some regards.
I got you. See, I'm the kind of science guy that sits around thinking, how big of a laser do we really need to blow up the moon? Like, could that even sit on Earth, or would we have to have a platform floating in space?
Those are the questions that get you on a list somewhere.
And if we shot that laser on a platform floating in space, would it like recoil? Because the blast of the laser would obviously send the ray gun shooting off in the other direction, because the laser would have to have some kind of mass in order to actually hit the moon and make it a... See, this is the stuff that keeps me up at night.
This is reminding me actually of that Futurama. What was the invention? The sniffinator or something?
And the smelloscope, yeah.
Smelloscope, yeah. That sent me down a weird rabbit hole for like 1 week. I'm thinking, because in a way, you're thinking of how can you smell things in space. And when you think of what smell is, it's all just molecules, right? Mm-hmm. It's just different molecules have different arrangements or compounds that our bodies perceive differently. And it's like, well, could you actually invent some sort of device that can smell like the hydrogen or helium or these abundant gases in space? And that was really cool to think about. I think you could. I don't know why you'd want to do it. I'm sure somebody who like spends their time thinking about hunting the stars or locating chemicals in the universe, they would get really excited about it.
But they do that though. Cool. They can identify compounds in space through magic, I guess. I don't know exactly how they do it, but that's beyond. Like they found the compounds in the clouds in Venus, the phytopropyl whatever compounds that they think may mean something living in the clouds.
They've got probes and things in space instruments, but they don't have something from Earth that's extending from the ground to Earth.
Oh, sure.
1,000 feet into the air. That's the fun thing to think about.
That would be cool.
Those completely ridiculous ideas, right?
Yeah, like how big can you possibly build something sticking out into Earth before the rotation of the Earth starts to torque it so much that it breaks?
Or the space elevator.
I was just gonna say that, like a space elevator. Yeah. Like, is that feasibly possible to have a satellite in space with a cable hanging down that you could just like hook up a little rotor to it, just like go up to space? Is that even remotely?
No.
It sounds neat, but I would think that dragging cable would just drag the thing down into Earth and it would crash.
Yeah, at least my mind can't perceive it as something being feasible, but it's really cool to think about if you can just kind of get inside a little elevator, push a floor button, like, I think I want to go to low Earth orbit today, or let me go a little higher. Let me just dive into the universe.
If they didn't call it a Wonkavator, it would be just wrong. Or rather, what? It would. What I'm trying to say is it would have to be called a Wonkavator. I'm not sure why I constructed the sentence that way to begin with.
That's okay. That's okay.
Because it's both going up ways and diagonal ways and sideways all at the same time. Because it's a space elevator. Yeah, all at the same time. I mean, you just think you're going up, but you're really going up and forward and over. Dun, dun, dun.
There's actually a really cool, what do they call it? It's some sort of...
Tommy?
like a Martian vehicle. So when you drive your car, you think you go forward, you go backwards, and you have to turn your car to go to certain degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have this multi-directional vehicle for different Martian surfaces where the wheels actually spin 360 degrees.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty fun. I've been on it. You can like drive your car sideways, and it is a weird experience sitting inside of a car and you're just like continuously driving sideways.
Huh. All right. Speaking of Mars, this is the perfect way to finish this up. Mars, when we finally colonize Mars, Mars's year is roughly twice the length of our year, right? It takes roughly two times around the sun for Earth for Mars to go one time around the sun, right? We're roughly the same. So how do you do Christmas on Mars? Do you do Christmas every 2 years, or do you have two Christmases? Does Mars's seasons would be 6 months and not 3 months? How do you do seasons on Mars? How do you do, like, do you have a summer Christmas and a winter Christmas? Do you do a summer New Year and a winter New Year? Do you just do Martian New Year and you don't worry about New Year? How do you do years and holidays, even more importantly, on Mars? Because you still age the same as a person. As a person, one time around the sun for Earth is 1 year, but one time around the sun on Mars is 2 years. I'm still 2 years older. It's not like I'm going to live to be 70 on Mars. I'm going to live to be 35. So how do you do this stuff? Like, what's a Martian calendar look like? Solve this problem.
Are we still celebrating Christmas on Mars? Are we just completely making up our new own holidays? Like what I'm more interested in is what holidays would you make up or celebrate on Mars?
Well, yeah, because Thanksgiving is a American holiday. You wouldn't have, you'd have the equivalent of July 4th, but it wouldn't be Independence Day, American Independence Day. You wouldn't have Bastille Day on Mars.
Yeah, you could sort of have Thanksgiving in terms of like the day that Earthlings
it'd be Martian Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah.
But would you only do it once a year, or would you do it once every 365 Earth days?
I don't know. I think you could just celebrate it as often as you want to.
Well, would your kids on Mars be jealous of the kids on Earth for getting two Christmas every year?
Now you have to drag the kids into it.
Because you're up on Mars. You're a kid on Mars. I think of my buddy when I was in high school, who he had 7 days of Christmas because he was Jewish. They had Hanukkah, and he always rubbed it in. Like he got socks and a belt. 1 year it was like socks, belt, a wallet. He's like, yeah, I've got 7 gifts. I'm like, dude, you got socks and a belt and a wallet. And then when Christmas came, I got socks and a belt and a wallet too. I just got them all on the same day. But yeah, he milked it. He rubbed it in that year. Anyway, he was a good guy. Still good friends with him. Anyway, yeah. But so like, is it a thing that have the big brains over at the agency thought about this? Like, how do we do calendars on Mars?
Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody thinking about it. It's just not something that I think about. But there's somebody that's like
smart people are thinking about it, but they're stupid.
No, they're much smarter than me. That's
like whatever they want to waste their dumb time with. The smart people are working on polymers.
No. They think I think in this small little bubble, and they're thinking about those big questions. It's not something I'm spending my time thinking about.
Big social questions, yeah. Like we're trying to figure out how people can drink pee and not die. They can worry about double Christmases. I don't give a shit.
The social aspects do fascinate me, though. Even just like, so when astronauts are in space, they actually have their own psychologists, and like they are evaluated. Because when you are isolated, in a sense, you're out of your home environment. You're in this basically floating submarine, and human nature is like, well, that's not what we have been accustomed to, and so people watch over them and make sure they're doing okay. And I like to think about, well, how are our minds and our social activities going to adapt when we get to somewhere like Mars or even further away? And you've got delayed communication, and you can't just pick up a phone right now and call home to your loved one. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves.
That would be interesting, because you can't. The fastest you can communicate with someone on Mars is still the speed of light. It's what, 8 minutes?
We can't travel faster than the speed of light.
Is it 8 minutes or 20 minutes? 8 minutes is the distance from the sun to Earth, It's like 15 or 20 minutes from Earth to Mars, right? So the round trip is like 40.
I don't know what the delay in communication is, but I mean,
I'm trying to remember back to The Martian, which is pretty much the source of all my Mars science.
That's a great book and a great movie.
Thoroughly entertaining. I'm still. It was really hard to convince me that Mark Wahlberg is a scientist, but whatever. I'll take it.
I think he did a great job.
Yeah, but it's still. I mean, I'm looking at it like that's still Mark Wahlberg. As long as I can separate the Mark Wahlberg from the character, I'm in. But as soon as it's like, yeah, that's Marky Mark, like, damn it, I got to spend 15 minutes undoing the Marky Mark reference.
Our brains that's how our brains work, right? Once you know somebody or something in a certain way, we just forever associate it that way.
Yeah, you get that hook and you're anchored in there. But so distracting. But yeah, that was but it also goes back to that thing. It's the distance and the distance being the biggest killer for interstellar, interplanetary, inner object, whatever in space travel. The distance is just you can make anything lighter, smaller, faster, more efficient, whatever, but you've still got to travel the space, the distance. Mm-hmm. What if we went the other direction? What if we went with super giant stuff? Like, for example, here on Earth, like a fly going from Europe to America. That would take forever. But an aircraft carrier, that's much larger. And it moves faster. It can move much quicker. What if we went with super giant sized structures in space? Could those, that wouldn't, even saying it out loud.
I think you get a lot of, then you get the mass problem, right? So, I mean, maybe we're invading like the world's super lightest material, but then the physics start getting hard the bigger you make things.
I mean, you'd have to basically build a self-sustaining planet that could fly between stars. And if you're going to do that, well, you just, you have one right here that's perfectly fine.
I read a blog once about somebody who wants to turn asteroids into spaceships and use asteroids to fly between planets, and that's cool. I want to get on that person.
That would be neat. But that is also how the insects attacked Earth in Starship Troopers.
Asteroids?
Yeah, they sent asteroids to Earth, and that's how they blew up Buenos Aires, and that caused the whole recruitment process, and that's why they invaded the planet. Klaatu, I think was what it was. Now I'm going to have to go watch that movie again.
Well, maybe we'll avoid asteroids then, because I'm not signing up for insects to.
Well, what I'm saying is, it's plausible. I mean, if they can launch asteroids at Earth, we could put people on the asteroids and launch them at some other planet. Why not? Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that could possibly happen?
Those are the words you never say. You never say those words.
What's the worst thing? I mean, it's not like we're going to spark an intergalactic, interspecies war of complete and total annihilation. We get Doogie Howser on our side, and you'll.
Now you're the one going down the dark path of ending humanity. Not me anymore.
We'll get Doogie Howser on our side. He'll mind meld with the giant slug, and then that's how we'll beat the aliens, because we'll know that they feel pain and they feel fear.
You've got it all figured out.
Yeah, and then it's a great movie, but it's a dumb movie. Anyway, so
dumb movies are the best movies.
Yeah, that movie. I took my lovely wife, who was then my lovely girlfriend, on a date to that movie. That was one of our early dates, early in our relationship, and she looked at me and she said, "You owe me a movie."
This does not count. This is not a date.
You owe me a movie, and we had to go. I had to take her back to the movies, and we watched Little Mermaid. That was my penance of having to watch Little Mermaid.
It's not a bad movie either.
Yeah, it's not great.
But we all have our likes and dislikes. I like to tell people one of my favorite places to go on a date is Home Depot, and it's absolutely true, because Home Depot is a giant playground. It is so fun.
It is fun. There's a lot of stuff you can do and find, and a lot of possibilities at Home Depot. And there's something there for everybody. There really is. From the mechanical to the
gardening
aesthetic.
Section, electrical section.
And there's even, in the gardening section, there's the life support systems where you can make your own food and cultivate your own soil.
That's what we need. We need a Home Depot for space. That is what space exploration needs. You need a one-stop shop. You pick up your supplies, you get your wrench, or you get your electrical wiring, keep on going.
So we need to launch a Home Depot first.
Yeah.
And then the habitation pods come next.
Yeah, that sounds like the proper order of priorities there.
I think so, and that brings everything full circle. We're back.
Yeah.
We're back to the beginning. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a fun, fantastic, exciting hour. We have solved just about every single problem you can solve in an hour with regards to space travel and interplanetary species or intergalactic species annihilation, which is ultimately the goal. No.
No, that's not the goal. We got to steer away from that.
I love how that was met with just an awkward silence as you were processing the words that I said out loud.
I was like, I thought we were past this. We were trying to survive, not die. How are we back here again?
No, definitely us surviving, because we're going to beat the alien bugs. That's how it's going to work.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. You are literally the first expert on interstellar time travel and life support that I've ever had on the show, and I look forward to having you on again sometime. This will be fun.
Absolutely.
Say goodnight to everybody.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Hey, thanks so much. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button there. Over here are some videos you might want to check out, and there's a playlist. And here's another video for you. And don't forget to check us out on all the socials. Thanks a bunch, and good night.